this was a longitudinal study that was done in a
Yes.
relatively sort of academic setting?
Yes, he did a large-scale longitudinal study, and he's fantastic.
Those three traits were predictive.
Mhm.
Conscientiousness, which is being a combination of thoughtful and kind. Uh,
I don't wanna get too into definitions in case I
yeah,
misstate something, but, the way I understand conscientiousness, and there are different personality models, right? And each personality model, and not every personality, there's really no one personality model that has ever gotten it completely right. They've all been dispelled in certain regards. But the way that I see conscientiousness as a whole across different personality models is it's got a couple of things combined. So it's not just nice. Nice to me can also mean low self esteem, a pushover, trying to be liked. Conscientiousness may not even look super smiley friendly. It's more of an action. So to me, it is somebody who's smart enough to actually notice and anticipate somebody's needs. My husband is incredibly observant, and um, it's something that continues to also bring up admiration in me. So it's got that
yeah.
uh, observational quality, intelligence, and then also motivation. You can't be lazy, and
They're
then
industrious.
not
They go
do
and
the
get things
yeah,
done.
they're industrious, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. I was more thinking, I was trying to sort of interpret it, I guess, into the language of romance. But yes, if you're talking straight up, what is conscientiousness? I think good
Mhm.
definition. They are flexible psychologically. If there is some sort of perturbation, they end up getting back to baseline in not an insane amount of time. If something occurs, they're able to adapt to it, which
Mhm.
is maybe distinct, but kind of sounds a little bit like a subset of agency, which I would put not too far away from
It is
conscientiousness as well.
agency.
Right. Okay. So you
Yes.
want highly agentic
You are
partner.
so smart.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna have
And
to up
then,
my game now. We're
uh,
on a different level.
and then, your final one, you want a degree of openness to new experience. Presumably, that's somebody that just doesn't want to sit on their ass all the time. It helps to keep things exciting, but that is something that you can overshoot for, and you end up with someone who is going to be very open sociosexually. They're going to be looking for,
If high adventurousness predicts cheating.
yeah, correct. So okay, that's interesting as three traits. I guess a question would be, let's say that you are on an early date with someone or you're early into a relationship. What are some of the ways that you can adjudicate how much or how little of those traits your partner has?
This is the great question. Um, I learned about these. I'm gonna speak from my own experience, okay? So I've experienced this because I knew about these traits before I met Ty, and I absolutely intended to try this out. When I learned about them, I was actually dating somebody. We were not happy, and that person, I would say, lacked these traits. Both of us probably lack these traits, to be completely fair. But we were in a conference together watching Tai Tashiro speak about this. And I remember sitting there at this conference, not having a particularly good time with the person I was with, and thinking, I can do this. I can follow instructions. And the reason I also thought that was because Tai Tashiro was emphasizing how difficult this is. That our evolutionary brains really want, so if we're talking about a straight female, we want that strong jawline. We want somebody who's all brawn. We want money. We want height. We want protection for our young. Um, and he actually did this experiment where he had everybody raise their hands if they were a straight male single. And so you had about 100 men in this room raise their hands. And he was mimicking the average dating experience. So you go online, you're a straight woman, you want a straight man single. And then he says, so how many of you are between the ages of 35 and 45? So let's say now you've got about 50 hands up. And then he said, how many of you are Catholic? And you've got maybe 20 hands up. How many of you make over 200,000 a year? You've got, I don't know, 5 hands up. How many of you are 6 feet tall? One hand. So you can see that this completely diminishes our pool. So really what he was doing was, in fact, the book he wrote is called The Science of Happily Ever After, and he talks about 3 wishes. Statistically speaking, you'll get married. If that's something you want, you're going to get married. Most people in society do. But you really get to choose three things guaranteed, and then your pool goes down. And if you want hotness, height, and money, you might have a person who's a complete selfish asshole. And that's where you think, like, are there those problems ones that you're going to be able to deal with just because the person's hot in 20 years?
Mm.
Or are you going to be so sick of their shit that you don't care how hot they are? So that's really what it comes down to. So your question was, how do we adjudicate this? How do we find somebody with these qualities? What I can tell you is that I knew it was going to be hard, but I also know that I love science. And so if this was as sound as he said it was, I could do it. And I knew that the biggest thing in my way was just to get rid of that evolutionary urge for hotness. The night I met Ty, so I broke up with the person I was with that day. I moved back to California. I immediately got on Tinder. This was 2015. So Tinder was kind of it. And I also didn't know what I was doing. I was new to apps and got on Tinder. I will tell you what, with that mindset that I didn't care about hotness, money, or height, I realized there were so many lovely eligible bachelors. And so I was just swiping away, swipe, swipe, swipe. Ty was one of the first people to respond. He was online, and so was this male model. And the male model was that baseline instinct in me. I was just like, and you, even though you're putting up a lot of like ab pictures, I just can't help it. So I actually had two contenders. I lived this. And Ty, I didn't know what he actually looked like. He was wearing a giraffe costume on his main picture, which I thought was funny. And there was some pictures of him working, but he had like hard hat stuff. So I had no idea he was hot and Australian and 6'2". I mean, I did win in this case. But I'm texting, I'm messaging him, I'm messaging this other guy. Ty is so wonderful. And he's just asking me these really intelligent questions, sort of like this conversation, right? So you're one of those rare ones who has all of those qualities. Ladies, watch out. But I could just tell he was wonderful. And we're talking, you can tell if you know what these three things are. I could just tell. I just needed to be aware of them. It was there. And he kind of became more of a friend. And in the meantime, this model is sending me like emojis of wet splashes and asking if I want a massage. Now, granted, I was on Tinder. I need to be fair. And I kept talking to the model. I just couldn't help myself. But after about 24 hours, I was done with the model guy. Ty was just becoming this friend. And then something kind of scary happened with my work 2 weeks later. And I realized I wanted to tell my friend about it. And that's how it evolved.